Good morning, everyone. Let's do some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhur Bhavaswaha, Tatsavitra Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Asto ma sadgamya, tamso ma jyotirgamya, mrityorma amritam gamya. Om sehna bhavatu sehna bhunaktu saviryam karvavahe tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om shanti shanti shanti. Let's open our Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. We started looking at the section 3, which is on our little book, page number 135. And this is section 3 of the second chapter. And as you know, these verses are not in poetry. Most of the verses are in prose. That's why you cannot really sing them, even if you know the singing or even if you know the Sanskrit very well. So the very first mantra I told you, this Upanishad is known by that mantra. Dve vav brahmanoh rupehe murtam cha eva amurtam cha mrityam cha amritam cha sthitam cha yat cha sat cha tayat cha. Brahm has two forms, gross and subtle. So very clearly this Rishi is telling us no limitation on Brahma. Brahma has two forms, gross and subtle. Mortal and immortal. Limited and unlimited. Perceptible and imperceptible. So there should not be any doubt in our mind after reading this so clearly. So Brahma has indeed two forms in relation to the body and organs, which are the products of the five elements also. So gross and the subtle forms, perishable and imperishable forms, finite and infinite forms, perceptible and imperceptible forms. So two forms have each four characteristics. Today we're going to start the class with verse number 2, because we ended our last week's class with the discussion on the first mantra. यत् वायो च अंतरिक्षात् च अन्यत् तत् एतत् मूर्तं मृत्यम् एतत् स्थितम् एतत् सत् तस्य एतस्य मूर्तस्य एतस्य मृतस्य एतस्य स्थितस्य एतस्य यतः एकायः एषः तपतिः एषः हि सतः. The gross form is that which is other than the air and the ether. So out of those form, the five kinds or five elements, you can say, the gross form is that which is other than the air and the ether. It is mortal, it is limited, and it is perceptible. So these three we can perceive. The essence of that form, which is gross, mortal, limited, and perceptible, is the shining sun. For it is the essence of those three elements: earth, water, fire. These are the three he is talking about. So as we know, the entire creation is the result of the five fundamental subtle elements. And this is what's designated as truth in this section. And I'm sure you have all memorized these five elements: ether, air, fire, water, and earth, from the subtlest to the grossest. And from these five great principles, the five organs of actions, the five organs of perception, so Karamendriya and Gyanendriya, the five pran, thought and intelligence, were produced. So man and buddhi also. These are 17 principles constitute the subtle body of the microcosm, as well as of the macrocosm. The five sheaths, which are produced from the five elements, consists of food, vital air, mind, intelligence, and bliss. And we have learned this in the language of Annamay Kosh, Pranamay Kosh, Manomay Kosh, Vigyanmay Kosh, and Anandamay Kosh. These are the five sheaths. And the five subtle elements have their properties also. These properties called tanmatras: sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. Each one is linked with each element. The property of ether is the transmission of sound. Okay, there cannot be any dhvani without akash element. The properties of air are sound and touch, sparsh. The properties of fire are sound, touch, and form. So in other words, the subtlest are also in the next grosser one also. And the properties of water are sound, touch, form, and taste. And the properties of water are sound, touch, form, and taste. The properties of earth are sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. All five of them. Because of the Panchikaran. In this series of five elements, the first two, ether and air, are formless. This is what this Rishi is telling us. They are subtler than the remaining three, which have form and which are grosser in nature, being perceptible to the sense organs. We cannot see the ether, we cannot see the pure air. Sure, when the air has some earth in it, sure we can see it. But what are we seeing is the dirt in there, or the smoke in there, or the color in there, not the air. So in this context, they are classified in two groups according to their gross and subtle nature. So this verse says that those which are different from ether and air, that means the fire, water, and earth, are possessed of gross forms. The triad of gross elements, it says mortal, limited. Limited means finite. and perceptible to the sense organs. Why? Because it has form. We can see the fire, water, and earth. So the grossness, mortality, finitude, and perceptibility, these four are interdependent and they do not contradict each other. So any one of these four attributes may represent the other three in relation to the three elements to which it belongs, the four attributes. So four attributes, what he mentioned is grossness, mortality, finitude, and perceptibility. That which shines, namely the sun. Because whenever we want to think of what shines, the first thing which comes to our mind is sun, is the essence of these three elements. The sun, in fact, supports all forms. These three elements, fire, water, and earth, having 3, 4, and 5 properties, which he mentioned respectively, have their essence in the sun, which stands for the cosmic body. Starting from the ether, the subtlest, then the air, we saw that, and the fire. In this mantra, the Rishi is referring to the physical shining orb of the sun, which we are all familiar with. For us, the sun has a form. We are not talking about the deity which is residing in the sun, like a Surya Devata, or even the subtle principles of the sun. This is the essence of perception, the form. It is the physical sun which illumines all forms. And that's how the other three elements are also perceived by us. So then in the next mantra, he says, verse number 3, Ath adhyatmam. No, number 3 is, sorry. Ath amurtam vayuch antariksham cha etat amritam etat yat etat tyat tasya etasya amurtasya etasya amritasya etasya etasya त्यस्य एषः रसा एषः य एषः एतस्मिन् मण्डले पुरुषः एषः तस्य रसा इति अधिदैवतम्. So verse number 3. Now the subtle form. So the last mantra was about the grosser form. Now the subtle form. It is air and the ether. So in other words, those 5 elements subdivided into 2. So the subtle form, it is the air and the ether, it is immortal. It is unlimited. It is imperceptible. The essence of that form, which is subtle, immortal, unlimited, and imperceptible, is the principle that is in the solar orb, for it is the essence of those 2 elements. This is with reference to the deities. So as regards the subtle and the formless, according to this Rishi, and according to our understanding also, that they are air and the ether. Since these two are comparatively subtler in nature, they are said to be possessed of formlessness, immortality, relatively. Okay? Just remember that. Because ultimately, none of this Prakriti is immortal. They all change, but relatively compared to the other three. Infinitude and imperceptibility. So, ether and air are not comprehended by the gross eyes. That's what it means. No form can be attributed to them. So, formlessness, immortality, infinitude, and imperceptibility are interdependent. So that means any one of them may stand for all in relation to these two elements. So one of these four attributes represents the remaining three also. Just as the physical sun was considered to be the supporting ground for all forms in the previous mantra, in the same way, the subtle body of a Hiranyagarbha, represented by the principle or being in the solar orb, that means presiding deity in the sun, is the supporting ground for these two subtle elements. Why? Because they are the principal ingredients of the cosmic subtle body. Of course, the other three elements also are there, but they play only a subordinate part. Remember that. In the order of creation, these two subtle elements were the first to emanate from the undifferentiated principle, one after the other, in order to form the subtle body of the Hiranyagarbha. So that's why it said that it is their essence. So just as these two elements are imperceptible, which two elements? Air and ether. The same way that being which is in the sun is also imperceptible. If we want to see the Surya Devata, can we see it? No, not with these eyes. Can we see the God principle in sun? We can't. Can we see the God principle in ourself with these eyes, mortal eyes? No. So, on account of the similarity between the imperceptibility of the being residing in the sun and that in the two elements, this mantra says that it is the essence of imperceptible for purposes of meditation. Because as we know, this whole Upanishad is about meditations. And this is with reference to the attributes of Brahm. Because Brahm is everywhere. There's no place where Brahm is not. Right in the very first mantra, he said Brahm is as a form and formless too. So whether it's the form of a sun or whether it's the formless attributes of sun, they both are Brahma. This is all in relation with the cosmic phenomena. subtle as well as gross. In the next verse, Rishi is dealing with the individual self also. Because ultimately we have to understand with the help of what we have gotten. Ath adhyatmam murtam idam ev yat pranat cha yach ayam antratman akashah tasmat anyat yat chakshuh sato hi eshah rasa. Now, with reference to the body, the gross form is verily this. What is other than air and the ether that is in the body? It is mortal, it is limited, it is perceptible. The essence of that form, which is gross, mortal, limited, and perceptible, is the I. For it is the essence of those three elements. So, individual self, because ultimately we got to understand our individual self also. We have a gross form, which we are very much familiar with, at least the outer part of it, which is different from the pran or even the ether. This is mortal. This is finite. And this is perceptible. We can see our form also, we can see others' form also. Of this gross, of this mortal, of this finite, of this perceptible. This is the essence, that which is the I. This is the essence of the perceptible. He's talking about these eyes which we have. Chakshu. So this gross form of Brahm in relation to the individual bodies is earth, water, and fire because they are grosser in nature. And again, this gross form is mortal, finite, and perceptible. These three constitute the physical bodies of the beings, whether organic or inorganic. The essence or the support for this physical body is the I. Why? Because the I alone assumes a lot of value. Eyes. According to the Shruti, the eyes are the first, like in a very early stages, maybe not the first, but the very early stage of all the five Gyanendriya, eyes is the first that is formed in the embryo. In addition to that, the eye is the seat of phenomenal perception, and its place in the microcosm is like that of a sun in the macrocosm. So sun up there, eyes in our individual bodies. So that's why he says this is the essence of the perceptible, the eye. In fact, if we want to perceive the essence, just like Arjun wanted to see God, what did Lord Krishna say? You don't have those divine eyes. So even to see divinity, what did he do? He was given the divine eyes to see God, the Virat Rupa. Eyes. Next verse, verse number 5. Ath amurtam pranah cha यच अयम अंतरात्मन आकाशाय अयम दक्षिणे अक्षन पुरुषः. See, rest of this verse is already repeated in the previous verses. So now the subtle form, it is the air and the ether that is in the body. It is immortal, it is unlimited, it is imperceptible. So first few verses he talked about the macrocosm. Now it's a microcosm, our own body. So it is immortal, it's unlimited, it is imperceptible. The essence of that form, which is subtle, immortal, unlimited, and imperceptible, is this principle that is in the right eye. For it is the essence of those two elements in the body. So now about the formless. That is the pran and the ether within this body. And that's what he's saying, immortal, infinite, imperceptible, formless, infinite. So the subtle form of Brahma in this individual body. So there's a grosser form of Brahma in this body and the subtle form of Brahma also in this body too. Because if Brahma is everywhere, that means in this body too. Everybody. Not just only in the saints and the yogis, everybody. And not just only the human beings. In everybody. Animals, reptiles, birds, plants, bushes, mountains, ocean, everywhere. So the subtle form of Brahm in the individual body is constituted of the two remaining elements. Vital air and the intracardiac space within the body. They are subtle in nature. They form the main ingredients in the composition of the subtle body. And the substance of this subtle, immortal, infinite, and imperceptible form is that principle which resides in the right eye, he says. And this view, according to this Rishi, is in accordance with other passages in the Vedas which declare that the subtle body is specially manifest in the right eye. That means it has been said by other rishis also. It is said that during waking state, perception takes place in the right eye first. And then only it is circulated to the other sense organs. This right eye is the place where the principle in the subtle body specially manifests itself. When we do our havan also, what do? We touch our right eye first, then the left eye. When we are praying to God, right ear, then the left ear. Right shoulder, then the left shoulder. So there must be some deeper significance to this. Because not only in this verse, but other scriptures talk like that too. The right eye. Let's look at the last verse of this chapter also. So this is a verse number 6. Tasyeha etasye purushasya rupam yatha maharajanam vasaha yatha pandu adhikam vatha indra gopaha यथा अपि अर्चिः यथा पुंडरीकम यथा सुकृत विद्युतम य एवं वेद अस्य सकृत विद्युतः इव हवे भवति अथ अतः आदेशः इति न इति न इति न इति एतस्मात् हि अन्यत् परम न अस्ति अथ नाम ध्येयं सत्यस्य सत्यम इति प्राणः वे सत्यम एषः तेषां सत्यम इति तृतीयम ब्राह्मणम. The form of that perceptible, the subtle body is as follows. As is a cloth dyed with turmeric or grey sheep's wool or the deep red insect called Indragopa or a tongue of fire or a white lotus or a flash of lightning. He who knows thus verily attains fame like a flash of lightning. Now, therefore, the specification about Brahma, because all these verses are for us to understand what Brahma is. So now, therefore, the specification about Brahma, not this, na iti, na iti. For there is no other or better specification than this. Now it's a sacred name, the truth of truth. The vital force is truth, and it is the truth of that. So far we have seen this Rishi is telling us that there are two forms of Brahma, gross and subtle, mortal and immortal, finite, infinite, perceptible and imperceptible. This we have understood through all these verses. And the entire group of elements with their effects, the body and the senses, forms the phenomenal essence, which is the empirical reality. Subtle as well as gross, individual as well as cosmic. Okay, the words which were used earlier, microcosm and macrocosm, from the relative point of view. So this is the ground for phenomenal existence. The entire apparent reality is the manifestation or the effects of these elements and their further manifestation. This is the relative reality which we see, we understand. And we can really look at the concrete structure of the manifold existence. The yogis, they say, or the rishis, they say, this is because of the force of ignorance. That we see only the physicality, not the essence. So this relative existence to us is truth. Later on, we'll see in this Upanishad, the declaration, which is the basis and the background for the empirical reality. In terms of the truth of the truth. So sum total of all gross and subtle bodies in the form of Viraj and Hiranyagarbha, because these are the two terms we have understood in this scripture. The pervasive principle in the microcosm and in the macrocosm is the eminent principle in the entire creation. So the form of this person consists of impressions of gross and subtle objects due to the presentation of the objects to the mind. So these are the colors of gross and subtle impressions which are metaphorically presented in this verse. The form of this person is said to be like the saffron colored robe, because the colored cloth we can see. Or he says like the gray color of a sheep, which we can perceive. Because if we look at the wool of the sheep, there is a little color to it, like the deep red color of the insect called the Indragopa. There must be some insect with that name which has a red color back then in that place where that rishi was. Like a fire flame, like a white lotus, and like a sudden flash of lightning. All those colors we can perceive. These different colors and attributes of that person are presented only as examples of the infinite variety of impressions. See, just like when Arjun said, I want to know in which form I should worship. He said, give me in detail. What did Lord Krishna say? There's no end to my forms. But I'll give you a few examples. And in that chapter, he gave us some examples. The same thing this Rishi is doing. Out of infinite variety of impressions, he is just giving us a few examples so that we can focus upon. This person, if you want to call it Brahma, has infinite colors, forms, and impressions. So these examples which are here given only a few of those numerous types of impressions. You can never, there's no end to it. It's called Ananta. There's no end to the forms. So then this Upanishad negates every quality which is related to the empirical self, and through this negation points out to the truth. And what is this negation? Na iti, na iti. Because it's more than that. No matter how many forms, no matter how many colors, no matter how fast we travel, there's no end to it. So that is called through negation. After having ascertained the absolute reality of Brahm as the basis for the empirical reality, this Rishi negates all attributes, or you can call it empirical or limited adjuncts. Limiting adjuncts are the upadhis. Because upadhis are only superimposed on Brahma. And why do we superimpose? Out of ignorance. So the Upanishad first described the two forms of Brahm, the gross consisting of earth, water, and fire, and the subtle constituting of the air and ether. and then denies the predication of every attribute in Brahma. Because to predicate any attribute is to limit Brahma. If we say God is only in this form, we are limiting Brahma. Or if we say God is only formless, we are limiting Brahma out of our own ignorance. The ultimate reality cannot be described in any positive and determinate term, because every determination is a limitation. In some, there may arise a doubt whether the negation repeated twice in this, not this, not this, like a neti, neti, negates both the world as well as Brahma, or only one of them. Some people also maintain the view that both are negated, but this would result in a complete void. And in that case, Brahma, which becomes a non-entity, cannot be the basis for the empirical universe, which is also false. We may negate Brahma because we have not seen it, but we cannot negate the empirical reality, because we do experience it through our senses, through all our senses. So that's why the argument is quite unreasonable. Because the main purpose of this Upanishad is the establishment of the non-dual Brahm. If that Brahm itself is negated, it would contradict the intention of the Upanishad. Because the solemn promise was made to teach Brahma to these students. So in short, this negative expression, which denies every attempt to define the absolute in terms of human language, affirms the transcendental reality. So it does not say that it's a shunya. It affirms that there is a transcendental reality which is misunderstood by the ignorant. They view as the non-entity. It is in reality the negation of the diversity and the affirmation of the transcendentance. This Atma, Brahma, is a consciousness absolute, which defies all positive definitions. That's why it's described as a neti, neti, not this, not this. The Upanishad itself says that there is no other and more appropriate description than this is not this, not this. In order to have some kind of a intelligible conception of Brahma, or to end all the arguments, this neti, neti term is used by these rishis. All conceptual molds break down under the weight of this reality. All relative, particular, and finite appearances merge in the highest truth. So whether there's a form made out of gold, or a silver, or a copper, or a mud, or it's a mental image, they all merge into that one. It could be a form of any god. according to our own liking. But they all merge into that one, the highest truth. So this is the implication of the declaration of this Upanishad, that the Brahma cannot be limited by the pluralistic and the dualistic attributes, qualities and actions known to human understanding. Because human understanding, which we do through our intellect, the buddhi, can go only so far because it's made out of prakriti. No matter how expansive it is, it's still limited. It's not infinite. How can we really understand something which is infinite with the finite? While trying to understand this mantra, which we must concentrate